I'm Rachel Lowe. I'm 32 now, working in corporate finance. All I hoped was to be seen just once before she left. But at her farewell party, my name never came up. Not in speeches, not in slideshows, not even in passing. But when I finally stood to speak, the room forgot how to breathe. They called it Danielle's farewell party, a send-off before she left for her big New York promotion. Everyone came. The backyard sparkled with string lights, soft music drifted through the air, and people toasted with pink lemonade in champagne glasses like it was a wedding. I stood near the patio door holding a tray of lemon bars I had baked the night before, her favorite, or at least they used to be. Mom took them with a quick nod, placing the tray down beside a basket of store-bought cookies. "Thanks, sweetie," she said, eyes already scanning the crowd for someone more important. I stood there for a second, watching her walk away in her navy sundress, calling out to our neighbor like I hadn't just arrived from 2 hours away. Danielle was the star, of course. Hair-perfect dress, effortless laugh, loud enough to draw glances. She moved like someone used to being adored, and she was. Everyone there had a story about Danielle, how she nailed her interviews, how she bought our parents that vacation to Napa, how she inspired her interns. No one asked me how I was doing. I wasn't the reason for the party. I wasn't even listed in the slideshow. They played it on a white bedsheet hung near the fence. Childhood photos, school awards, college graduation. Danielle in every shot with our parents, our cousins, her friends, even her dog. I saw myself once in the corner of a birthday picture mostly cropped out. No one seemed to notice. Uncle Theo gave a toast. Danielle always had that spark, didn't she? Remember that science fair first place? You were what, 13, he laughed. We knew then. She was going places. I remembered that night too, staying up late helping her measure voltages, cutting out cardboard, calming her down when her circuit didn't work. But I said nothing. I sipped lemonade from a paper cup and let it pass. The speeches kept coming. Her boss from the internship, she got the one I turned down, said Danielle had unshakable poise. Her college roommate joked about how Danielle always managed to get upgraded to first class. Dad spoke last, his voice low with emotion. "We're so proud," he said, holding back tears. "You've always made us proud. Always." I looked down at my shoes. Flats, scuffed at the front. I'd changed in the car parked 2 blocks down because the driveway was full. No one had saved me a seat. I stood near the back fence where the citronella candle flickered and bees buzzed near the light. A family friend came up to me, Mrs. Langford, I think her name was. "You must be one of Danielle's colleagues," she said brightly. "You look just like her." I smiled. "I'm her sister." Her face froze for half a second, then broke into an awkward chuckle. "Oh, of course." "Yes, I see it now." She walked away before I could say anything else. Not that I was going to. The gift table overflowed with gold-trimmed cards and candles in boutique bags. One stood out, a wicker basket filled with tea and handmade scarves. I had knitted one of them during last winter, navy blue with a tiny embroidered D. I saw it poking out the top, but the tag I attached, with Love R, had fallen beneath the ribbon. Danielle opened it later, smiling politely. "Oh, cute," she said, glancing at the crowd. "Thanks. Whoever this is from." No one said a word, not even Mom. I stepped away after that, walked past the buffet table, past the half-empty lemonade pitcher into the kitchen. It was quiet there. I opened the fridge, cold air on my face. I wasn't even looking for anything. Then I shut it. From the window above the sink, I could see the party still going strong. Danielle hugging Aunt Marie, our dad laughing with her old music teacher. A warm light bathed them all like a family photo. I waited, just to hear my name once. It never came. I stayed in the kitchen longer than I needed to, pretending to clean up crumbs that weren't mine. Every few minutes someone would pass through grabbing a drink, checking their phone, never looking directly at me. I smiled each time, the kind of smile people use when they're trying to stay invisible. Eventually, I stepped out onto the side porch. The air had cooled and a soft breeze lifted the edges of the white tablecloths. From there, I could see the laughter without hearing it. Danielle was spinning slowly to the background music with her best friend Elise, barefoot on the grass, a flower crown tilted perfectly in her hair. Someone took a picture, the kind people frame and hang in living rooms. No one noticed I was gone. I wandered further around the side of the house where a few cousins smoked near the garden. They were younger college-aged and didn't look up until I passed. One of them, Nate, squinted at me. "Hey, are you one of Danielle's co-workers or something?" I gave the same answer I always did. "Her sister." "Oh," he said, embarrassed. "Right, sorry. You guys don't like talk much." "Not really," I said. He nodded. "She's busy, huh?" That was one word for it. Back inside, Mom was slicing cake. It was a triple-layer red velvet from a boutique bakery. Danielle's favorite. Mine had always been lemon, but that never came up. Plates passed from hand to hand. I reached out to take one, and Mom handed it to the person behind me instead. "Oh," she said, noticing too late. "I thought you already had one." I hadn't. It was just a plate, just a moment. But I felt it. The invisibility of being there, but not really, like furniture. I sat on the edge of the couch for a while, balancing my untouched slice on a napkin. Across the room, Dad was showing Danielle's moving itinerary to Uncle Ben. Flights, apartment photos, company car, all perfectly color-printed in a little folder. I didn't know she was getting a company car. Aunt Marilyn appeared beside me, gently easing into the seat. "I didn't see you earlier," she said, warm but quiet. "I was around," I replied. "Mostly in the kitchen." She gave a knowing smile. "Of course you were." We sat in silence for a bit. "She's always had a way of filling a room," Marilyn said finally. "But you listen more than you speak. That's a kind of strength, too." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust my voice. The playlist looped. Someone started a toast again. More words about how Danielle lights up every space she enters, how she deserves the world. I watched her beam under the patio lights, soaking it in like sunlight. I remembered a line Danielle once said when we were teenagers. "You're like background music, nice, but people don't really notice it unless it stops." At the time, I laughed. We both did. But tonight, I felt it settle over me like a second skin. More people trickled out as the night went on. Cars rumbled down the driveway, goodbyes filled the hallway. Someone cried, not me. I lingered by the foyer waiting to say goodbye. Danielle hugged a dozen people before she got to me. "Oh, hey," she said already, glancing over her shoulder. "You made it." "I did. Thanks for coming. It means a lot." Her voice was polite, practiced. She pulled me into a quick hug, arms barely touching. I wanted to say something, anything, but nothing felt worth saying. So I smiled. Then I stepped back, picked up my bag, and opened the door. The night was quiet outside. Just the sound of cicadas and the soft closing of the door behind me. No one followed. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the engine on. The party lights still glowed faintly through the trees, flickering against the dark. I imagined someone realizing I was gone, maybe stepping outside to call after me. But no one did. The driveway curved gently toward the main road. As I pulled away, the gravel crunched beneath the tires like it always had when we were kids. Back then, Danielle and I used to race up it barefoot to see who could reach the porch first. She usually won. I usually let her. At the first stop sign, I paused longer than needed. There was no traffic, just the soft hum of a late summer night. I didn't cry. I didn't clench the steering wheel or curse into the silence. I just sat, breathing. There's a weight that comes from being forgotten, not with cruelty, but with indifference. It's quieter, but heavier somehow. The next day I went back to work a small community health clinic where I managed logistics. No one there knew about the party. I didn't mention it. They wouldn't ask. And I liked that. By midweek I got a call from Aunt Marilyn. "Just checking in," she said. "You slipped out quietly." "That's kind of my thing," I said with a small laugh. She hesitated. "You doing okay?" "I'm fine. Really." "I know that word," she said gently. "It's the one we use when we're holding everything in." We talked for a while, mostly about her garden, the weather, the peaches that came early this year, but just before hanging up, she added, "You know, Rachel, not everyone at that party forgot who you are." It stayed with me, that sentence. Like a thread I didn't pull, afraid the whole thing might unravel. That weekend I got an invitation from the clinic's director. They wanted me to speak at a regional healthcare conference, a panel on emergency logistics and crisis planning. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. I accepted, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift. Not loud, not sudden, just a quiet realignment, like a door clicking softly into place. The night before the conference, I laid out my clothes, reviewed my notes, and set 3 alarms. Then I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sky turn from indigo to ink. They hadn't mentioned me once at Danielle's farewell party, not even in passing, but somehow that silence had cleared space for something else to rise. Not anger, not revenge, just presence. And this time I wasn't going to shrink from it. 2 weeks after the farewell party, Mom called. Her voice was bright, almost theatrical, the kind she used when she was about to say something that wasn't quite a suggestion, but also wasn't really optional. "Rachel, sweetheart," she began, "Danielle wants to do a second round of goodbyes before the move. A smaller thing, just family. Sunday night, I told her we'd all be there. We, that word again, like I'd ever been part of it." I hesitated. "I'll see if I can rearrange a few things." There was a pause, then a clipped, "I told her you'd come." By the time Sunday arrived, I had mentally rehearsed every possible version of the night, the jokes I'd pretend to laugh at, the moments I'd be talked over, the familiar feeling of watching the spotlight shine everywhere but on me. I still went. The gathering was at my parents' home, the same one where we celebrated birthdays as kids. The backyard had been cleaned up for the occasion, fairy lights strung across the trees, folding chairs arranged in a wide circle. Danielle stood in the center, glowing. Not just from the pregnancy, but from the way people orbited her, offering drinks, fluffing her seat cushions, asking if she needed anything. Even Uncle Howard, who usually kept to himself, was there early, grinning like this was his granddaughter heading off to the moon. I stayed near the edge, smiling, nodding, present but invisible. Aunt Marilyn spotted me and came over. "I was hoping you'd come," she said quietly. "I said I would," I replied, then added with a smile, "Besides, someone's gotta be on flashlight duty once those fairy lights go out." She chuckled but said nothing more. That was one of the things I loved about her. She didn't force conversation into places it didn't belong. As people settled into their seats, Dad tapped his glass with a spoon, the universal cue for attention. "Thank you all for coming. This means the world to us." To Danielle. Everyone turned toward the center. Danielle stood, one hand resting on the small of her back, the other on her belly. She looked radiant, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel happy for her. Then came the speeches. Mom went first. "Danielle's always been our sunshine," she said misty-eyed. "From the moment she was born, she brought light into our lives. Even when things were tough, she made everything easier." There was a pause. "And as she starts this next chapter in Boston, we just want her to know she carries all of us with her." Applause followed. I clapped too. Then Uncle Howard, then Cousin Claire. Each took turns recalling childhood memories, inside jokes, milestones. Danielle's high school valedictorian speech, her solo in the church choir. That time she won the regional spelling bee in 6th grade. It was like watching a carefully curated exhibit, every memory polished, placed under perfect lighting. I wasn't mentioned once, not even in the background of those stories. At one point, someone passed around a photo album. It had pictures from various family events. There was Danielle in every stage of life, baby, teenager, young woman. In many photos, she was smiling with someone else, mom, dad, cousins. I flipped through silently. Near the back, I found one photo with both of us. It was blurry, taken from behind. We were maybe 8 and 10, running across the beach. Danielle's arm stretched forward. Mine was half out of frame. I closed the album. Dinner was served buffet style. I waited until most people had filled their plates before approaching the table. As I reached for a serving spoon, Mom appeared beside me. "Don't take the couscous," she said quickly. "That's Danielle's favorite. We only have one tray." I looked at the spoon in my hand, then set it down. Of course, it wasn't about couscous. It never was. It was about erasure in 1,000 tiny moments, the kind that didn't leave bruises, just a slowly spreading absence. As the evening wore on, I helped collect plates, refill drinks, carry out more napkins. I became part of the furniture, useful, unnoticed. Danielle stood near the porch steps, laughing with her husband and a few close friends. At one point, she looked my way directly for just a second. No smile, no nod. Then turned back. I sat alone near the edge of the lawn, nursing a glass of ginger ale, watching the shadows grow longer. The fairy lights flickered above. From a distance, it must have looked beautiful. From where I sat, it felt like a farewell I was never really invited to. As the plates were cleared and dessert was brought out, an elaborate lemon meringue Danielle had always loved, Mom began setting out tiny candles around the porch railing. For the send-off, she explained to no one in particular. Danielle's husband, Matt, stood up next, tapping his glass to get everyone's attention. Before we wrap up, he said, "I just want to say how lucky we are. Danielle's not just amazing in Boston, she's amazing here and everywhere she goes." There were chuckles, some fake swooning noises from the cousins. "She's going to build a new life there, but she'll always be our home." Then he pulled out a slim red box. And from all of us, this. Danielle opened it to reveal a dainty gold bracelet engraved. I couldn't see the inscription, but I knew what it said before anyone read it aloud. "To our shining star," Matt said, holding it up, "just like the one Mom always called you." My jaw clenched so tight I had to remind myself to swallow. Danielle's eyes glossed over. She hugged Matt, then Mom, then Dad. A cluster of people gathered around for photos. Aunt Marilyn, seated beside me, leaned over. "That bracelet used to be your grandmother's, didn't it?" I nodded. I thought, "It might be yours one day." I gave her a tight smile. So did I. The moment stretched long and stiff. Marilyn didn't say more. Danielle began making rounds, hugging people, saying individual goodbyes. She moved from group to group like a graceful hostess, warm-poised, deeply adored. She stopped in front of me last. There was a flicker in her expression, not guilt, not kindness, more like calculation. "Thanks for coming," she said flatly, then added, "I know this probably wasn't your scene." I looked up. It was illuminating. She tilted her head the way people do when they think they've heard something deep, but aren't sure if it's an insult. Then she turned and walked away. I sat there a moment longer before standing up to stretch my legs. I didn't plan on eavesdropping, but voices carried easier in the yard's open space. By the garden trellis, Mom and Danielle stood close together. I caught just a snippet. "She never really grew into herself," Mom was saying. "Still floating, still unsure. You've always had purpose, Danielle. You've always led." Danielle laughed softly. "Rachel's harmless, Mom. Let her linger. It makes her feel included." The words sliced cleaner than any shout ever could. I stepped back, gravel crunching beneath my heel. They didn't hear it. I walked toward the side of the house, past the fire pit that hadn't been lit, and toward the driveway. I needed air. I needed to remember who I was when I wasn't here. Then I heard my name. From behind. "Rachel," Aunt Marilyn called gently. "Would you mind helping me carry something from the garage?" I turned. She was holding a box of old photo frames. "It's too heavy," she said, though it wasn't. We stepped inside the garage. Cool and dark. Dust motes floated where a sliver of porch light spilled through. She set the box down and looked at me. "I saw the bracelet," she said softly. I said nothing. She knew what it meant. Your mother did too. Still, I kept quiet. I also know what it meant when you gave Grandpa's eulogy last year, even though they asked Danielle first. My shoulders tightened. He asked me to. I know, she nodded. That's why it mattered. She touched my elbow gently. "Sometimes what's quiet speaks the loudest. You know that, don't you?" I swallowed a tight knot in my throat. Then Marilyn did something I didn't expect. She reached into her purse and pulled out a sealed white envelope. "He left this for you. Your grandfather. He made me promise not to hand it over unless—" She stopped herself. "Unless what I asked. Unless you stood your ground. Without yelling. Without begging. Just stood." I took the envelope. I didn't open it. Not yet. Back outside, Danielle was giving her final round of hugs, posing for more photos, saying how much she'd miss everyone. As I stepped forward holding the envelope in one hand, I saw how Aunt Marilyn quietly moved to the side. No spotlight, no drama. Danielle noticed the envelope but said nothing. Matt glanced at it, then looked away. No one asked. And I didn't offer. I walked past the circle of chairs and stopped near the edge of the patio, my back to them. The envelope stayed in my hand. No speech, no confrontation, just a pause. Enough for them to feel it. And then I tucked the letter into my coat pocket. The fairy lights flickered overhead. The air had cooled. Something had shifted. They didn't know what yet, but they would. Dinner had long ended, and most of the guests had moved toward the fire pit, finally lit flames licking the twilight air, while someone passed around mugs of spiced cider. Laughter rose in waves inside jokes. I wasn't part of stories I hadn't been there to witness. I stayed seated by the steps, watching shadows move across the lawn. From time to time, someone would glance my way. A polite nod, a half smile, but no one sat beside me. Danielle was now holding court under the string lights. Someone handed her a little microphone connected to the portable speaker. She tapped it, grinned. "I just want to thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "It means the world to me." Her voice carried easily, smooth and assured. "Boston's always been the plan, but saying goodbye still stings. You all, my family, my heart, you've shaped me." I could almost finish the speech for her. She'd always been good with words when there was a spotlight. I preferred mine on paper. Before I go, Danielle added, her eyes gleaming, "I want to play a short video, just memories we've shared." A small projector flicked on. A white bedsheet had been pinned against the garden wall. Clips of Danielle as a child played dance recitals, birthday cakes, school awards. She beamed in every frame. My parents were in many. I was in almost none. There was one shot, a brief glimpse of me around age 12 in the background, handing Danielle a glass of water after a performance. The camera didn't linger. I was cut off mid-motion. A few people clapped when the video ended. Danielle took another small bow. "I'll miss you all so much." Aunt Marilyn caught my eye, her lips pressed into a knowing line. It was then that Mom turned to the crowd. "Before we end," she said brightly, "just a quick toast to Danielle. You've made us proud since day one, and wherever you go, remember you carry this family's light." I don't know why that line landed so heavy in my chest. Maybe because of its finality. Maybe because no one looked my way when she said it. Matt refilled Danielle's glass. Dad lit another candle. A breeze passed through, almost perfectly timed. I stood up slowly. Someone nearby noticed. They turned to see if I'd say something. I didn't. Instead, I walked over to the table near the back, the one where Aunt Marilyn had set down the extra napkins and unused centerpieces. I placed the sealed envelope carefully in the center. No sound, no announcement. But people noticed. It took a moment, but heads turned. Conversation stalled. Danielle's laugh caught in her throat. Aunt Marilyn stepped beside me, not saying a word, just stood there watching too. Danielle finally asked, "What's that?" I didn't respond. Someone leaned in, squinted at the envelope. "Rachel Lowe," they read aloud. "Private. Do not open unless intended." Danielle looked at me, her face tightening. "Is this some sort of moment?" I shrugged lightly. "Not really." And I turned, walking away, not fast, not slow, just steady. I passed by the guests, the firelight, the string of golden bulbs swaying above. I felt the chill in the air deepen, felt it settle into the silence I left behind. At the edge of the driveway, I looked back once. No one was talking, not even Danielle. She held the glass but didn't raise it. Aunt Marilyn picked up the envelope, slid it gently back into her purse. I didn't need them to read it. That wasn't the point. I just needed them to see it had always been there. I didn't expect the next morning to begin with a phone call from Aunt Marilyn. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the undertone measured, like someone standing at the edge of something important. "They opened the envelope," she said. I was silent. They didn't say anything out loud, of course, but Rachel, the room went cold. I didn't ask what they read. I knew exactly what was inside: copied documentation, notarized papers, and the briefest of letters, all factual, no embellishment, just truth. Truth they never bothered to ask for. A year ago, I had been offered a partnership position at a renowned firm in D.C. My name had been attached to two major projects that quietly shaped federal infrastructure funding. I didn't boast. Didn't even tell Danielle. It felt cleaner that way. I'd built something real while they still measured value in birthday speeches and public hugs. Aunt Marilyn continued, "Your father didn't say a word. Your mother started rearranging centerpieces. Danielle," she sat back down, didn't finish her cider. I pictured it all. The pause, the avoidance, the way silence could scrape louder than words. The farewell party had turned into something else, something quieter, more watchful. That afternoon I received a message from Danielle. Just one sentence. Was this necessary? I stared at the screen. Typed, deleted, typed again, and finally wrote back, "Only if you think it was." I didn't expect a reply. I wasn't fishing for one. That weekend I returned to D.C. My apartment felt even quieter than usual, but not hollow. It felt mine. Monday came. I was back at my desk before 8 a.m., walking through reports, timelines, quiet check-ins with my assistant. At 10:42 a.m., the firm's director knocked on my glass door. "Rachel," he said, "you've been requested for the December keynote at the National Infrastructure Conference." I looked up. "Full spotlight," he added with a smile. "They want someone who knows what it means to lead from behind the curtain." I didn't smile back, not in the moment. I just nodded. That evening I went through old photos. Found one from when Danielle and I were maybe 9 and 12, me holding up a handmade banner while she blew out birthday candles. Everyone clapped for her. I was already fading into the edges even then. I set it aside. Then found the photo taken 2 months ago standing next to a senator reviewing a site plan. No cake, no applause, just focus. That one I framed. A few days later, Aunt Marilyn sent a card. No text inside, just a small pressed flower taped in the center. I placed it next to the frame. No one else reached out from the party. Not Mom, not Dad, not Danielle. But silence, I realized, can be a form of punctuation. And mine had finally ended the sentence. 3 weeks passed. I didn't post anything. Didn't respond to family texts, though to be fair there weren't many. Just a few group messages about Grandma's upcoming checkup and a forwarded meme from Uncle Ray. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, something strange happened. I received a LinkedIn notification. "Danielle Lowe has endorsed you for strategic planning." I blinked. She didn't even follow me there. We weren't connected. And yet, there it was. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even acknowledgement. But it was something. A tap on the wall between us, not enough to break it, just enough to be heard. I didn't respond. That Sunday, I received a wedding invitation. Not Danielle's, someone from her old circle, a friend I barely remembered. The envelope was hand-addressed, and inside on the RSVP card someone had scrawled, "Hope to see you there, Rachel. You're unforgettable." Unforgettable. That word stayed with me, not because I needed it, but because it felt accurate. I was no longer someone hovering in the background of other people's lives. I had built a world that didn't require applause to stand. A week later, Aunt Marilyn called again. This time her voice was lighter. "You've stirred something," she said. Danielle came by, quiet, awkward, but she asked if I had any of your favorite recipes. I smiled faintly. She say why? No, Marilyn replied, but she left with the peach cobbler one. That's a start. That weekend I attended a networking event hosted by the city's Urban Planning Commission. It was modest, no televised cameras, no headline speakers, just sharp minds, good wine, and better ideas. I wore navy. Simple, clean, unremarkable. But as I moved through the room, more than a few people paused mid-conversation when they saw me. One man, a state senator, nodded and offered his hand. "Ms. Lowe," he said, "we've heard about your work. Quiet power, refreshing, quiet power." That phrase echoed. It didn't need translation. It didn't need fireworks. It just landed. On the train home that night, I stared out the window and saw my reflection. Same face, same posture, but something in the eyes had settled, like the dust of years finally cleared to reveal shape and definition. When I stepped into my apartment, I took off my coat and sat by the window. Then I opened my laptop and began to write. Not a letter, not an essay, but a blueprint for a community restoration proposal in a city no one had paid attention to in decades. No headline, no applause, just pages of vision, and it felt finally like the right kind of loud. A few months later, summer rolled in quietly. The kind of soft Midwest summer where the air smelled like ripe tomatoes and cut grass. I hadn't heard from Danielle in weeks, and I didn't mind. I was knee-deep in a zoning proposal that had been accepted into the final rounds of state-level review. My days were full, my evenings calm. Then came the call. From Grandma. She never called. She texted, sent holiday cards, forwarded recipes in Comic Sans. But that morning, her name lit up on my screen, and I paused before answering. "Hi, honey," she said, her voice raspy but warm. "I just wanted to say I watched the video." "The video?" She chuckled. "The one from the city panel. You spoke so clearly, so confidently. I didn't know you had that in you." I smiled. "I didn't either until recently." She paused. "Danielle was here last weekend. She brought peach cobbler. Yours. Said it was from an old family recipe. Didn't say more, but I knew. I didn't ask what she knew. I just let the silence hold." "She's proud of you in her own way," Grandma added. "I didn't need her to be. But I thanked Grandma anyway." A week later, the family held another gathering. Smaller this time. A cousin's housewarming. I wasn't planning to go, but Aunt Marilyn insisted. "Just come," she said. "Don't overthink it." So I went. The house was bright and noisy. Children ran through the halls. Paper plates overflowed with potluck casseroles. For a second I hesitated at the door, unsure where to go. Then I saw her, Danielle, standing by the kitchen island holding a glass of sparkling cider. She noticed me. Her smile was tight, cautious, but real. She lifted her glass a little, almost a toast, then looked down. That was all. No dramatic reunion. No apology wrapped in tears. But she made space, literally. She stepped aside so I could reach the counter, handed me a plate, asked if I'd tried the baked beans. And for the first time in years, we stood in the same kitchen side by side. I didn't stay long, just enough to eat, chat, and leave a small thank you card for the host. As I stepped out onto the porch, someone called after me. "Rachel." I turned. It was one of Danielle's friends from the farewell party, the same one who'd laughed when I wasn't mentioned. She looked different, no longer smug, just curious. "I saw your segment," she said, "at the state hearing. You're doing incredible work." I nodded. "Thank you." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say more, then thought better of it. I didn't wait. I walked to my car, unlocked the door, and slid inside. The engine hummed quietly as I sat there, the early evening sun casting a golden haze through the windshield. Across the street, I saw Danielle through the window laughing with cousins refilling drinks. She looked at peace. So did I. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. The celebration never needed to end. It just needed to change its guest list. I adjusted the rearview mirror, caught my own reflection, and whispered, "Goodbye doesn't have to mean gone." Then I drove away. And no one stopped me. Because this time I wasn't leaving behind silence. I was taking it with me. Some endings don't need applause. They just need the quiet click of a car door closing, the steady sound of footsteps moving forward, and the knowing glance of someone who finally chose herself. Not to prove a point, not to win, just because she could.